Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to introduce you to someone who is an absolute genius on a very hot topic right now. I met him recently at the A4M conference here in Las Vegas. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, anti-aging and longevity conference. And he is Tom Kerber, who is the president of Kerber USA. The company is called SunPowerLED. They are a red light therapy company, but not just any red light therapy. You know, I've been asking people recently, people have been asking me about red light, and I've been asking them about red light, and what are the benefits? And people say, it's good for skin health, it's good for your mitochondria and energy, but there's not really a whole lot of people that are talking about specific use cases the way that Tom is, and I think that's because the type of devices that he uses and that we'll be talking about today are really so much more powerful and have so much more use cases than just the kind of generic things that you're seeing on the market that are good for just kind of skin and a little bit of overall health there. So SunPower LED light therapy devices have seen people with chronic pain, inflammation, and many other issues find relief from their products. Their products provide red and near infrared light energy, right? This is called photobiomodulation or red light therapy, which provides light energy directly into the cells to improve a variety of cellular functions. So PBM, photobiomodulation, or we'll call it PBM for short, has been researched for decades around the world with positive results. In fact, according to the PBM Foundation, PBM has been used in over 100 million patient treatments without any documented side effects. That's a really, really exciting part of it. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you, Talor.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Talking to you at your booth, you were a wealth of knowledge. You had a red light helmet, but not like these just hair growth red light helmets. It was a real heavy duty.
It was a real helmet.
High powered. Yeah, that was a real helmet. Like I could feel it moving. And, let's start with a little bit of background. We'll get into the different products and different use cases, I'm sure. But let's start with a little bit of a kind of a brief history. How did you get interested into red light therapy?
Well, my company and myself, I've been involved in electronic development now for over 40 years. All different kinds of devices, anything going from devices that have gone into the ground, 5 miles into the ground, to stuff that's gone on power lines, and a lot of other different devices that have built and designed for other companies, and a couple attempts at trying to do something myself, but for the most part, it was for other products. And then about 18, it's getting now on almost 20 years ago, we had frequently people coming to our company to show us the latest, greatest, newest LEDs, electronic products of different kinds, all different kinds of things. And in this one case, this one salesman came to me from one of the major suppliers, and he said, "Here's this fantastic LED, and it costs. Look at how bright it is, fantastic, super bright." And he says, "It's $70 a piece." And it's like, yeah, I mean, who's going to use this? Because 3 of those would make a 100-watt light bulb, so that wouldn't be too useful. And who would want to buy a $300-400 light bulb for the room? Not going to happen. But I started looking into applications, and one of the applications that was possible was using the blue version, the blue LED version, to activate a compound inside your tooth to harden your tooth. And I had been in the dental chair lots and lots of times getting the fillings hardened, by the old means, and then the new means where they started using this halogen bulb inside of a unit, and it would harden the filling by shining light on it, a blue light. And when I heard that we could use LEDs, these high-powered blue LEDs, I thought, yeah, I've got something here. I can sell a $2,000 device that's on for the market, for dentistry, and they'll want to buy it, and it's solid state, and it's not going to, it's going to last them forever. and we made it battery operated and everything else. So, I felt we really had something there, and we did. And we were first ones out there with a high power blue LED for curing the fillings and working with dentists. And that's how I got into using LEDs. And even at that point in time, if you would have said to me, "Hey, shine this light on your elbow and get rid of the pain," I would have told you you're nuts or you're smoking something. There's no way.
Right.
But I just thought,
Yeah.
hey,
You know,
that's how I got into this, really, with the LEDs. But it went a
yeah.
little further than
And
that.
what's
So
interesting? Yeah.
go ahead. Go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to say, real quick, we just interviewed someone on oral health. She was a dental hygienist for 20 years and then kind of went the holistic route after seeing that the traditional dentistry wasn't doing very well. And she actually just told us about, you can take a pathogen test if you have, especially if you have bleeding gums or issues with your oral health that could be causing other issues like heart attacks and things like that. And she literally said too that if we identify the pathogens, we actually, using either ozone or lasers, we can actually kill some of the pathogens and heal some of the things without having to use antibiotics, which I thought was pretty fascinating.
Exactly. So at that point, it was just hardening and filling. But what happened from there is that we were one of the first ones out there competing against 3M. They're a little bit too big to compete against. It's not quite fair play that way. But oh well. About 3 years after this, my wife had a long-standing illness from way back. And she had hyperthyroidism. She had a whole mix of problems, and we were trying to deal with that. So we had looked into the natural health realm because we weren't getting answers in the normal realm to try and help her get through some things. And that was for her. And for me, I decided to put a window in on a second floor that we would do every year for wintertime. And I pushed the window in, and my ladder took off on me, and I fell to the ground level onto concrete. And that was bad flying lessons that day. Um, and I hurt myself. I didn't break anything. Amazingly, I didn't break anything. But what happened is I would then have a reoccurrent injury. That took quite a while before I finally was back in shape again, moving around pretty well. And then I'd pick up a paper clip off the floor, and all of a sudden I'd go into these massive back spasms that would be so very, very painful. So that was my kind of 35 years ago. And every year, 2 years, this would happen to me. So that was a setup for me. The setup for my wife was her illness. And I went to see a doctor with a medical doctor that I'd heard from two different people the same day. They didn't even know each other. They just happened to tell me the same day, "Hey, why don't you go see this one doctor in Burlington," which was a half an hour away from where I lived. And when I heard it from both of them, I thought, hey, there's something up. I do believe in divine occurrences or appointments, and this has got to be one of those, because I heard, and I just thought, wow, I got to go see this guy. And this guy was brilliant. I mean, he had all the latest equipment that you could imagine. As a medical doctor, his brother was very, very wealthy, so he was able to buy all the latest trinkets you could imagine to try anything. I mean, he had the ultrasonic machines for doing the measurements, on the legs and everything. He had stuff for heart problem, major equipment. So all sorts of equipment. So then what happened is I meet up with him, and he's asked my wife a bunch of questions. And he says to my wife, so is there any stress that you can get rid of in your life? Because stress can cause all sorts of problems. And then she starts pointing at me like I'm the stress maker. I was. I definitely was the stress maker. Being self-employed, going through electronic design is a very difficult thing, because we were expected to develop new things that were never done before and know everything about what could go wrong by the time you try and develop something. So you never knew what you were getting into, and you never knew the customer either, whether he was going to pay you or not. Just because you built the unit and it works beautiful doesn't mean he'll pay you the bill, the bills that are there. So, anyways, he says, "What do you do?" And I says, "Well, I make this powerful blue light for activating a drug compound. Sorry, the compound in the tooth." And he says, "Really?" He says, "Can you make that in red?" And I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Well, red is the right wavelength to photoactivate a drug that will kill cancer cells." And I'm like, "Oh, that would be cool." Now, I was totally naive at the time when it comes to the medical system. I still believed that the medical system wanted to get cancer behind them, and that was a big learning curve for me over probably about 2-3 years as to the stuff we went through. But he says you can photoactivate this drug and kill the cancer, and again, one of those divine occurrences where everything lines up. He was that day going to go out and buy 10 red laser pointers and put them together with elastic bands. Now, come on. And he had bought the drug for both patients. It was at the time, about $5,000 a piece. And that's how much he cared about his patients. I mean, what doctor would spend $1 on their patient? Never mind 5,000. Well, this was where this guy's head was at. He just wanted to help people. And so he had 2 patients. One of them had problem with a large tumor in the neck, a guy, and he wasn't doing well. And a woman had breast cancer, and she wasn't doing well. And I said, "Look, if you can wait for 3 weeks, I'll put all my employees on it. We'll do everything we can, and we'll have a unit for you in 3 weeks." And we built the first water-cooled high-power LED system. This thing was powerful. And we used you'll laugh. There's a show, MacGyver. Did you ever see that show, MacGyver? Okay, you gotta search way back. That was the old days. Okay, he'd kind of try and figure out any different things. Well, we used an office water cooler for the chiller to cool the LEDs, and we chased the water through tubes to cool the LEDs. And with that, in 3 weeks' time, we delivered the first high power LED system to photoactivate the drug. And we shrunk the cancers on both patients in the course of a month. And I was literally blown away. I thought, oh my gosh, the world is going to want this technology, because what I saw and what I didn't know was, no, the world in medical does not want to solve the cancer issue. They'd rather keep it the way it's going right now with chemo, radiation, surgery. But when we could take stage 4 breast cancer and totally heal the woman's breast, and usually it'd be ulcerative at that point, and metastasis, and get rid of the metastasis, that would be fantastic. But that's a different company. You had asked me, sorry, that's how I got into this. And then about I think it was about 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, I had to do some kind of modification to the light. So I picked up the light one night, got it back, and wouldn't I do that thing with my back? Something went wrong, and I was, whether I picked up a paper clip, I don't remember, but I do remember this. I was in so much pain, I could barely move around, lower back pain. And I thought, what if I put that light on the back of my shining on my back? Would it do anything? And I was kind of like, yeah, right. I mean, come on, shining the light. I could understand light activating a drug or light activating a compound in a tooth, but light shining on your back and it's going to get rid of the pain. Well, my pain was probably in the area of, I would say, an 8 out of 10. So you're talking just like screaming pain, hard to concentrate. And I was working on my computer, and I put that light behind my back, and it was, like I say, very powerful light. In about 20 minutes, I thought, what's going on here? And I was able to start moving in my chair, and I got out of my chair and I could almost bend over and touch my toes. Now my pain went from like an 8 down to like a 3 in like 20 minutes. And that's when I ended up realizing that, oh my gosh, this light therapy can help a person's back, probably could help a lot more things. And that's what we've learned, that basically anywhere on the body where you have a cell, we can improve that cell's performance, whether it's the top of the head or it's a bottom of the foot with a diabetic foot ulcer and it won't heal. We can look after the whole range. And that's what, so that started really, we started with LEDs, although the LEDs were pretty expensive. So we moved over to a different format of light using halogen bulbs with a special water filter that would remove all the heat component from it. And we made a lot of different prototypes and healed a lot of people in the process, and continued to work with that right up until just prior to COVID. I got brought out the LEDs. The LEDs were finally starting to come down in price. And around that time, I decided, we got locked down severely here in our area. And so there was no work coming through. Nobody come to my office. Everybody was scared to death about getting around. And so what am I going to do? I'm not going to twiddle my thumbs. I got work to, I got to do something. So that's when I jumped into, right in the very early stage of January of 2020. Yeah, 2020. Yeah, 19 was the tail end of 19 was when it started. So 2020 is when I started getting heavily involved in designing all the LED devices we have now for the SunPower LEDs. It's the lineup.
Amazing. Yeah. And so there's so many different use cases. We just mentioned kind of like injury healing, wound healing kind of things. That's kind of one that I know you focus on a lot.
Yeah,
We mentioned the case of oral health, with the, potentially healing things in the mouth.
yeah,
We know you've used a helmet for,
yeah,
yeah, there you go. We have, for those watching on video, you could see he has a handheld device that he is super powerful, that he can shine anywhere. He's
yeah.
literally shining it on his face right now.
And then we have a little probe adapter that goes in there so that you can actually direct the light inside your mouth and make it happen so that you can put that light down. Let's see if I got to just put it in the right place here. And as soon as I do that, there we go. And then I got the light coming out of the tip, as you can see. There's a little cover on
Wow.
it, but it shines the light right into the mouth, right on top of the area. My biggest interest in the beginning was the dentists. They were the early adopters of the equipment because they're used to using lasers. So I hit it off because I had already been involved with the dentist with the curing light. I was able to, somebody I connected with brought me right into the dentist, and we had podcasts speaking to dentists. And so dentists were buying this thing for TMJ, TMD, oral problems,
Mm.
of all kinds. And
Oh, wow.
so,
Even
yeah,
TMJ issues, huh? So people who are
yeah.
grinding their teeth. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, really helps reduce the this, tension in the muscles, the pain that they'd have in their jaw, and that kind of thing. And then also, you got all sorts of things inside the mouth that you can help with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of the biggest use cases, but I know now that you're also using the helmet for people who have issues potentially with dementia or Parkinson's. I was speaking with you about potentially
Exactly.
looking into that. Yeah, my father has been degrading every year since he had a stroke about 5 years ago, kind of dementia getting a little bit worse every year. And so obviously this is of high interest to me. I'm very interested in trying this out and putting it on this head and seeing. So I think some people may be wondering, so what's the mechanism like how is this What is the red light actually doing here?
Okay, so the red light does probably about 20 things that they know of, and there's probably another 40 things that they don't know. but
Mm-hmm.
off the top, the big things is that the red light can be absorbed by the mitochondria of the cell, and the mitochondria of the cell is your power plant. So if you feed that power plant with high octane fuel, that cell can do beautiful things. And a lot of times through injury, disease, whatever it can be, the cell is not working at its top performance. It may even be pretty starved in its actual energy that it has. And as you're probably aware of, is that they figure most of the diseases, if not all the diseases, are linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. So if you can pour energy into the cell directly and power up that cell, oh my gosh, can it ever do wonders? Whether it's healing of things on your head, or whether it's things on your bottom of your feet. And we have the light power to penetrate in. That's the key. I mean, it'd be just like going out on a boat, and you bring out a light and you say you're going to try and find the person that's overboard. Well, if you brought out a candle and you lit a candle and you're trying to find the guy overboard, or you take a 100,000 candela searchlight that can light something up at 2 miles, this is the difference between the technologies. There's a lot of candles out there in power, but when we're talking of equipment, we have the high power, let's say like searchlight, or if somebody's into automotive, we are not the 2-cylinder or 4-cylinder pickup truck. We are the 8 or 12-cylinder version that can go streaming up the top of the hill, and you get there in good time. I mean, sure, you could get up the hill with a 2-cylinder. It may take you forever, or it may not even happen. You may get halfway up there and it dies. But we have the 8 and 12-cylinder versions of light technology.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I did want to talk about that. I did want to talk about the difference between your devices and some of the other devices. But real quick, I would love to know, like, I know there's so many use cases. What do you think is the biggest use case? Or if I said to you, like, for example, hey, we have unlimited money to fund any clinical study that you want to see done with red light, what would be at the top of that list?
Okay, top of the list, I think, would be the cognitive issues, where you have dementia, Alzheimer's, those kinds of things, Parkinson's. We've seen beautiful, beautiful things happen with Parkinson's, where a person, they couldn't figure something out, and it's for years have not been able to draw a clock, and now they can draw a clock with the hands and the numbers in all the right places. Those types of changes after just 4 or 5 light treatments on the head is amazing. I would love to see the other applications as well, like not only the cognitive, when we're talking concussions. I mean, how many people have concussions, strokes, the Alzheimer's, dementia? We had the one fellow with Lewy body dementia, how much he improved being able to put the helmet on and just use it daily. We've had the issues with, opiate addiction and depression. And to make such a huge difference in a person's life with the 2 months of use, where it was only 2 treatments a week of 3 minutes. Now, if you had to use the other guys,
Wow.
you might have to use the light for 2 hours in a row or something. But we have the light to deliver in 3 minutes the energy that can reach into the brain, and through the skull is not a problem. So there's all those issues. Then you've got, where you got pain and inflammation anywhere on the body, whether it's the knees, the ankles, the shoulders, and you can't move your shoulder, you're always in pain. You use the light, and you get rid of the inflammation, you get the blood circulation. So you had asked me, sorry, I missed this one. You had asked me, how does it work? One, it gets the blood flowing. That's two, not in any particular order. It pours energy into the mitochondria. Three, it gets the lymphatic system flowing. Four, it has a redox reaction that takes place. And you go down the list, and there's just all these different things. It's like, oh my gosh, if you could do that for the cell, what would it do? Well, it'd heal in half the time. I got pictures of, burns, severe burns that would take months to heal, and they heal in a week, 2 weeks. It's just, other areas of the body where amputations would have taken place. So, there's so many applications that we have seen personally that, tinnitus, ringing in the ears, when people are on, to get rid of that, when people are on chemotherapy and their whole mouth just gets destroyed, you can prevent that all by using light therapy. And there's research out there. Heart myocarditis. I've talked to 5. You want to talk about a high one for getting some research behind would be myocarditis, because how many have come down with a shot because of the shot, ended up with myocarditis, and they're screwed for the rest of their life. Inflammation of the heart on that kind of thing is not something that's going to go away on its own. And if we have something that can help heal the heart, I've got right now 3 or 4 medical doctors, several other researchers that are all ready to jump on board as soon as we get some money together to do a myocarditis study, and change.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. We just had, it would be really cool. We just had a guy a couple episodes ago who uses, he brings with him now, he left the standard cardiology practice that he was with for 20 years and went out on his own because he wanted to actually spend more time with his patients and do the right things. And he brings with him a mobile ultrasound machine, and he does ultrasound looking at the heart and all around the heart, and he can see where things are inflamed. It would be really interesting to get one of your devices in his hands and start to use it and do ultrasounds before and after using for a couple of weeks or whatever it is, and see if he notices a difference.
Hook me up. Somehow we got to get a light in his hands for sure.
Yes, we'll make it happen. Yeah. So that sounds fascinating as well. And so let's take the use case. So let's use maybe my father as an example, right? So he's got progressing kind of dementia, slowly progressing every year. So in his case, you would recommend, I know you guys sell this helmet on your website. This is a heavy duty transcranial PBM helmet. And how long would he use that? And are there different settings? Is this thing complicated to use? Do you just turn it on and then it turns off, or what's the deal?
Yeah. So we have the simplest. Everybody likes to have the lowest cost. So we don't necessarily, we have things to add for bells and whistles, but you don't have to have them. So, if you're talking not requiring, let's say, a timer or pulsar or whatever, there's lesser cost, but it's so simple. You just switch the switch to the one wavelength, which is 660 nanometer, which is the one that really works on the blood flow, does not penetrate as deep. And you do 1 minute of that. And the other wavelength you switch it to would be 810 nanometer. And 810 nanometer penetrates a lot deeper than the 660. And the two really work hand in hand. Now, we also have on special order the 1050 nanometer, which some just want to move into that space. And it is possible, because it's a longer wavelength, to penetrate a bit deeper. And so, hey, if it's a little bit deeper, what does that mean? Well, it might make a big difference in some people's lives. But we have the standard unit is 660, 810, and we've seen lots of really good results with that. And then we have what's called the super helmet, which is a 660, 1050 nanometer. But a person would be using one wavelength for 1 minute and the other wavelength for 3 minutes. And I would say, hey, how many times do you get hungry a day? 3, 4 times? What about the cells? Do you think the cells might get hungry more than once? Sure, why not feed them 3-4 times a day? And if in some of these cognitive issues where you really want to speed up the possibility of improvement, why not on a home use unit when you only need 4 minutes doing morning, noon, and night? And or some people, they can't use it at night actually, and the reason being is it stimulates them and actually puts them in overdrive.
Mm.
So they may have to stop their last treatment at 6 o'clock. I've had a couple people that just found out that they can't go to, all of a sudden they're awake till 3 o'clock in the morning because they're just, they got all sorts of dynamic energy in their brain. So
Amazing. Yeah.
so yeah, that's what, it's very simple to use. And we do have a stand with it, so you don't have to it is heavier, so it's not something that you just can rest on the head directly. Well, you can, it's just a little annoying, but we do have a stand that has a hydraulic arm on it that allows you to move up and down to the right height and make it really simple. But for you, let's see
And so
your dad's situation. What I had one person with Lewy body dementia, and he, after I haven't seen him around for, like, he's a senior, so it's been many years that I had lost contact, and then I found out that he had this Lewy body dementia. He's an extremely good friend of mine from way back, mentor, and then we just lost touch with contact. And then I found out he had come out of the hospital and he was in rough shape and needed 24/7 care and all that. And I just brought him over the helmet. I just said to his wife, here, use it on him every day. And with 2.5 months, I have a video on our website of him talking. And he says, you know what? Everybody should have one of these because, there's no real downside to it. It's very safe and it helps me think better. And, this and that. And he says, also it's simple to use. And I can even use it on my knees. And my knees have gotten a lot better. So it was really funny because here's a guy, well, it was fantastic to see, but here's a guy who had great difficulty putting a sentence together and being able to turn right around and after a few months, be able to be on my webinar, which was fantastic. So from what we've seen a reversal of symptoms, whether it's cognitive problems with different things that they can't think, they can't remember names, all those kinds of things. Some of those things are coming back. And as a matter of fact, the one person was able to, he was a very, very sharp, I can't get into the details on this one, but anyways, he's extremely sharp mathematically, let's put it that way. And he couldn't even figure out a tip on it for years now, like 20 years. And he just, the other night they went out to eat somewhere and he figured out the tip amount. That's pretty good. Nice. Really nice,
Yeah.
Never mind that,
That's really nice.
He said,
and let me ask you, I want to transition a little bit into the differences between the different devices, because yours were so much more high powered than other devices I've seen. Obviously, there are cheaper devices. There are, you have these companies who have been advertising on different health podcasts for many years with their red light panels. Are any of them doing any good? I mean, what's the difference? Like the red light helmets that you wear for hair growth as well. I've worn those before. They didn't get hot like yours did. They didn't like heat up. So clearly yours was using a lot more power than what these ones do. And I think with so much, now when China, when Chinese companies and Chinese factories start selling stuff on Amazon directly, and you don't know what's, they might claim a certain wavelength, but how can you actually tell the difference? And like, what should someone be looking for? Someone's looking for a red light device. They hear about this. Okay, I've heard about it. I want to get a red light panel or a red light device. what are some questions they should be asking? What are they looking for?
Well, it is a very difficult landscape if you don't have an electronics engineer background, especially when it comes to some of the specifications that they'll put on these units. And it's not even close to anything in the reality front. As a matter of fact, it's really comical. They'll say, let's say 2300W, and it's because it's 2300, they'll say somewhere else it's using 2,300 watts of energy. Well, you're plugging into a normal outlet. Well, you can't, there's no way you can plug 2,300 watts into a regular outlet. The breaker will trip in your house in about 5 seconds. It's not. I would be surprised if that same unit draws 100 watts off the power, of power. So they rate them so wrong. So you have to have all the right equipment to do the measurements. And I'm talking right equipment. We're not just talking buying a $100 light meter off of Amazon. You're talking something that is costing you $10,000 to buy, to measure wavelengths, measure power, all those kinds of things. So it is a really difficult landscape. What I will say is that, when you take, with our devices, we put the LEDs so close together that it becomes a continuous amount of light coming from the panel. So it's a wall of light, as we call it. That's our trademark. But if you take a piece of 8.5 by 11 white paper and you put it against the unit and you see a spot of light here and a spot of light there and a spot of light there, that's not a lot of energy. It might be, if you took the sensor and you put it right over the dot, you might say, wow, look at how much that's got. But you move it 1/4 of an inch to the left or right, it's not nothing left again. So all those areas that you have nothing coming out of don't add up to the optical power that you need to penetrate in. So the panels are really great if you just want to help biohack the cells on your surface of your blood cells in the very top layer of your skin. That's about as far as you're going to get with most of those light panels. What you want to do is, if you could take take a big panel and then squeeze it and squeeze it and squeeze it till it's about 10% of the original size. Now you're talking of something that might be close to our device. Okay, so if you're trying to treat your shoulder, you don't want to treat your whole body. You want all the energy to be right in your shoulder area. And that's what we're doing, is we're condensing the light. We have very condensed units of energy, so that and it's over a area. Generally, our handheld is a 3-inch diameter. So that's already a pretty substantial amount of area. It's not a probe with one dot, or it's not with 5 little laser devices on it. It's a 3-inch with high power, stuff coming out, light energy coming out of it. And then we go right up to the bigger and bigger in the helmet. The helmet is 10 of our palm lights, the handheld palm lights, 10 of those, equally distributed over the whole area. People have been able to improve their cognitive issues with the palm light. It just takes a lot longer. It takes 10 times longer to kind of do the same thing. So instead of 4 minutes, you're talking 40 minutes. Well, does everybody have time in their schedule to do 40 minutes? So that is the real differences. And I guess another thing is, you said it, okay? If you put your hand inside my helmet, you could feel the warmth. You put your head in there, you could feel the warmth. You touch the walls of the device and they weren't hot. They were just lukewarm. So it wasn't like touching a hot stove. You're not feeling the far infrared coming from the hot plate or the bar in the ceiling or whatever. You're not feeling that heat. You're feeling energy is what you're feeling. That's the difference. And so it's not a case of, if you you put your hand near a stove stove element. You feel that energy, but there's almost no energy that penetrates coming from that stove element. Almost nothing. All it's doing is heating up the water in your skin, the upper layer of your skin. So it's you really have to know what you're feeling. So you feel when you touch the wall of the device, if it's cool yet or warm, let's say lukewarm, and you pull your hand back and you still feel your hand warming up because it's that far away. It's just like I'd say, just like being out on a summer beach. If you're out in the summer and you're at noon and you lay out the beach, you feel a certain energy that's coming to your body. As a matter of fact, that works out to 100 milliwatts per square centimeter. That's what the sun is radiating. And it's giving you that 100 milliwatts over the whole spectrum, from blue all the way to red, to near infrared and far infrared, 100 milliwatts. Our light devices with the red and near infrared PBM is all that energy squeezed down into just the red and near infrared, which penetrates. But if you're out on the beach at noon, you feel, everybody, I think most people know what it feels like, how nice and warm it feels, that energy coming from the sun. Okay, if you try to do that at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening, the sun's still out, isn't it? It could be, right? It depends on, does it feel as warm? Nothing, next to
Right,
nothing.
nowhere near.
That's where most panels are sitting, is at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. They're not at noon. Okay, we have 100 milliwatts per square centimeter over the whole area, and that's why we can treat somebody's pain in their shoulder or something going on in their guts. They need energy to penetrate, and the 810 nanometer will even carry deeper. So back injuries, to blood flow on the legs, to you name it. And yes, you can use one of our flat panels to do the brain as well, but it's not quite as convenient as the helmet, obviously. But that gives you. So I think
Yeah.
that I don't know. I hope I explained that well enough. That's the difference. Is
No, I
that
think you did. Yeah, I think you did. I think it's tough for people to tell out there with all the different advertisements for all these other red light therapy panels and things like that. But it sounds, what makes sense to me is what you said, is like these kind of generic red light panels that you can buy, this body length
yeah
panel for maybe a couple grand or something. And then you buy two of them. So you have one in the front and one in the back or something like that. But those, from what I'm understanding, and it makes a lot of sense, especially being able to test your device in person, it's that's more like surface level. Okay, maybe you'll get some skin
yeah
benefits, maybe you'll get a little mitochondria benefit,
yeah
maybe, but it's kind of like surface level. If you really want to penetrate deep into the body, you need something stronger, which is what yours are, and why yours are a little more expensive than those
Yeah,
ones.
and the other thing is that there has been a lot of people have said about lasers. Oh, you got to have a laser to end up getting penetration. Well, I presented in England that they're, in the end, a 5-watt laser with 5 watts continuous laser at 1064 nanometer, and our palm light at 1050 nanometer, around 5 watts of optical power, that in the end, after going through 2.25 inches steak or pork chop or chicken, after we went through all those different tissues, it made no difference whether it was a laser on top at 660, 810, or 1050, as far as comparing 660 LED to 660 laser. It made no difference. Yes, longer wavelengths will penetrate deeper. But as far as comparing a 5-watt laser to a 5-watt LED, no difference. So do you want to spend $1,900, or do you want to spend $19,000 to get the same, effect?
Right. And this is a big argument, actually, in the red light laser hair growth world. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was funny. Actually, at the show, we had different people, right? And some people were selling the red light therapy caps that had, oh, they claimed, well, ours has the most lasers because the LED doesn't do anything. It's the lasers that really penetrate, and
Yep.
that's what you need. And then you have other people that were saying, no, it's like, well, you should, what you said makes the most sense, right? The LEDs, and you actually showed me a demonstration. You're like, look how the LED spreads around, right? So the laser is just going straight down into wherever it's being, pointed at, right? Whereas the LED will hit the skin and spread out and cover a much larger surface area. But it all comes down to, right, how powerful the LEDs are, right? So with a powerful
Exactly.
LED, now you can cover much more surface area, right?
Right. And then when it comes to laser too, it'll hit the surface and it'll spread out in all directions. It's not the James Bond, going across the room, cutting the person in half. It's not that kind of power. And this LED laser power is when it hits the surface, it scatters in all directions too. So it doesn't give you any additional depth if it's a laser, culminated laser, or you have, and some folks would say, well, you got to have a super lens on the front of your LED to end up going deeper. Not that doesn't work either, unless you want to be a foot away from your light panel. Then that's when you really need some lenses to help to get something to the surface.
Yeah, and then the other argument that the laser cap wars, we'll call them, kind of claim is, well, I have more diodes. I have, this guy. They're all trying to one up each other. I made 3,000 diodes, and I made 3,100 diodes.
Yeah.
But you were telling me too. It's like, what's the power coming out of these things?
Yeah,
right?
if each one has a microwatt of current, a microwatt of power, you still have only 3,000 milliwatts of optical power, which is or three milliwatts of light power, which is nothing. So it really depends on what they're driving. And here it comes back to this, Talor, is that the light. If you're going to try and create that much light energy, you have to have significant cooling behind it. If you don't, the LEDs are going to burn up. They're not going to give you any life. You're not going to be able to crank them to giving you the optical power that you want to penetrate the depth so that you can treat your shoulder, like treat your shoulder joint. You need to have the right amount of cooling built into the devices. And if you looked at most of those helmets, there was no cooling whatsoever on those. So you could probably get, if you put your cell phone with the red only, you could probably get just about as much treatment with your cell phone. Put it on the highest brightness on red, and you probably get about as much optical power coming out of your cell phone. And you've got that anyway, so you know. But there's the caps; they can grow some hair, no doubt about it. And but that's not what we've been trying to do. Is grow hair or for cosmetic more. We're really in the space of deep tissue damage, deep, not only tissue damage, but deep stuff where you need to improve your body's performance for whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the hair growth market might be bigger than the help people save their lives
Well,
market.
the funny one was my chiropractor. He said to me, he says, Tom, he says, you're missing the market. I says, what do you mean? He says, you didn't tell me. He says, this is amazing for ED. And I'm like, I didn't, I haven't tried. I mean, I didn't, but he says, after 1 month, he says, man, I've never been so strong in a long time. And he said he loaned it out to his one buddy, and his buddy came back and said the same thing. He says it was amazing what it did. So there's other markets that I haven't tapped into.
No, there are a lot of biohackers doing this right now. Is they're buying like a small red light panel, and they're, putting it on their testicles every
Hey,
every
there's
day to
the
increase
testosterone.
testosterone
Exactly.
natural.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right.
that would be, yeah. I'd love to see a study be done on that, and to see if it actually worked
Yeah.
for that as well.
I mean, you might have to use the measurement of feet as opposed to inches.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh,
Well, Tom, this has been an absolute pleasure. So your website is
Correct.
sunpowerled.com. I highly recommend people check it out. You have videos on there, you have frequently asked questions, you have testimonials, you have links to different research that's been done
Yeah.
on it. You have all your different devices, from handheld devices to the helmet, on there as well.
And the big
Um,
canopy, yeah.
yeah,
And one other thing
in the
is
big
that there's
canopy.
also, if you go on the research page and you go down, if you're still skeptical about PBM and what it can do, and hey, is there any research articles out there? Well, there's a link to the PBM database where there's over 7,500 research articles that you can find just with your search terms. It's all there in one nice format. Now, the only thing is there's a mix of every type of light that's there, so there's some low power stuff that maybe not had quite the results of some of the higher power stuff, but that's on the research page as well. There's a thing there for a comparison guide, so people can get some kind of idea what the differences of different power levels is, and what
Yeah, and
power
if we
density.
have some physicians and people. I think, as well, I would like to throw it out there as well. Different physicians and people who maybe want to have you make something, for them, for their patients, things of that nature. You came across really as like just a really, really smart kind of mad scientist type of red light guy that can kind of create anything for any use case when needed.
Yes, exactly. Even to a probe to go where the sun doesn't shine. uh,
Well, this has been really, really great, Tom. I'm a big fan. I'm going to talk to you after we stop the recording right now. I'm going to talk to you about the helmet for my father a little bit more, because I'm very interested in that. I think there's a lot of different use cases here. Anything that I think for me personally, when you can help people avoid medications, avoid surgery, and not go down that rabbit hole where one medication might lead you to have to take another medication or have another side effect and another problem. If we can use something so simple like red light that doesn't have any known side effects that we know of, to heal issues like that, I think it's just really incredible. So really appreciate what you're doing, and highly recommend people go to sunpowerled.com to learn more.
yeah, and if they do, purchase something, I know we didn't talk about this earlier, and I'm sure, but if people want to use a code like Talor05, they could get a bit of a break, 5% break on that, if that's
Okay. So yeah. So if we can set that up, TALOR and then 05.
I, I'm sorry, taller. Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Taller
Don't
05.
worry. It happens every
I
day.
did it.
So yeah, we'll get that code then
Yeah.
set up.
So,
Someone wants to save a
anyways,
little
no,
there.
that's great.
Great. Well, Tom, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay. All
And
right. Well, it's
yeah,
been
really
great
appreciate
talking
it.
to you. Yeah.
Talk soon.
Okay. All the best. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you would forward this episode along to any friends, family members, anyone that you think that would get value out of it and learn something important. The mission at Peak Performance is to help people prioritize and transform their health. And so if you think someone will get value, please, please, please do forward this episode along to them.